a marketing research company from which he spent more than 35 years. So unlike me, who never had a job in a company, I'm a scholar. He is a practitioner. So not only we are different, I'm a statistician in my mindset, and he's what I call what I kind of, I am an academic, you are a practitioner, I guess, right? So we complement each other, and I love it because, and that really illustrates that marketing is not just one way of thinking. It's really multiple ways of thinking, and in a team, hopefully, that mosaic is reflected. Business is not a one-way street. There are multiple initiatives, multiple mindsets that need to be involved. Anyway, the what we'll be talking about today, as you can see from the slides, market segmentation, and the other one is brand positioning. I'll I'll start with market segmentation, and Bob will talk about brand positioning. I have to say, don't be shy. There is no, we don't claim to know the answer. If I claim it, I would be in business. I don't know, but my wish here is to, or our wish here is to, shape your mind on how to think about marketing. I think you know much better. You are closer to your business than any of us, and but we'll try to kind of shape your marketing mindset. Hopefully, at the end, you start to think like a marketer. That's really what we want to share with you. It is our passion. I love marketing, or we love it, and we'd like to share that with you. So don't be shy to interrupt. Maybe if you want to say in the chat, write something you want, and Lena or Tarek or Umayma can remind me of that. Sometimes I lose myself. If you want to talk, please do. So don't be shy. I know it's late. It's 8 p.m. So it's a challenge for us to keep you awake. Hopefully you won't be yawning. That's really the point I always say. Okay, so let's begin. I just want to say a few words here in terms of like what marketing is about and what we do. The first thing I would like to say is a good marketer or marketing is about understanding what drives the customers, really. What makes them buy brand A versus brand B? What makes them buy Coke versus Pepsi, right? And a good marketer understands those drivers. And between the two sessions that we'll cover today, you will get different ways of understanding, how the customer behave and what drives them to act one way or the other. So marketing, again, is really understanding about what drives the customer and understanding what choices they have available to them, right? Because the opportunity is really in that gap between what they want and how those wants and needs are being satisfied right now. A good marketer need to really get a good understanding of that. And in this graph here, in this picture, it is reflected by the customer, the company, and the competition, right? In the sense that we need to understand what drives the customers and what are the choices that are available to them, right? If everybody is happy and no problem, then just let's go back and enjoy our life. But if you could serve that need better than what's out there, then that's the opportunity. And I guess all of you guys are trying to come up with startups to fill that gap, right? So, which is your company here, which has capability and things like that. All right, so that's the first part. The second part here is about strategy, or what we call strategic marketing. A colleague of mine put it in a very simple way. He said strategy is about two things. One is, where do you want to play, right? Meaning, what segment of the market you'd like to target, and how you're going to differentiate yourself in that segment or those segments, right? So the first question is, where do you want to play? In which segment? The second one is, how do you want to play, right? How do you want to play? And how do you play it is basically that's the interplay between your value creation. Through your startup, you're coming up with an idea that beats the competition in one way, right? How you are going to create that value, right? What kind of product you want to do? Is it a product line? What kind of service you're going to provide with it, right? How we are going to communicate it, how we are going to shape that value in the mind of people. Because, engineers in general, they get so excited about something that they forgot that they are not serving themselves, they're serving a customer. Does that customer understand that value that they have in mind? So I use the word shaping that value that you are excited about in the mind of people. And that's not easy. Many companies failed because they failed to shape that value through communication, through education, through whatever means you have as a marketer. And the other one is how do you make it accessible to them? How would you deliver it? So the product, the promotion or the communication, the delivery, the place, all of these are about creating a value that for the people, right? That's what we call value creation. But the other one is value capture, right? Meaning how would you charge for it? What would be the pricing structure? Should it be a membership? Should it be a freemium and then upgrade, or whatever it is? That's what we call value capture. So how to play, meaning it's really how we are going to create value. What is your business proposition in some way, right? And how we are going to capture that value through a proper value, proper pricing. Yes. A question here, Bob? Oh, all
No, I
right.
think it
I
was
heard
just
something. All right, good. So this is basically the structure that we are going to talk about, and this is the structure in general that we talk about when we talk about marketing, right? So so far I defined what marketing is about and what is a strategy, which is where to play and how to play, right? Business is fun if you want to take it as fun. That's really the idea here. All right, so I'll talk about market segmentation. It's really, you have a market, it's a bunch of people, right? And those people want different things. They're not homogeneous. And to target them, to serve them, we'd like to group them into homogeneous groups or segments. That's what a market segment is about. Earlier, I mentioned how I view marketing. Actually, it's inspired from Levitt, a guru in marketing, who said to think segment means you have to think about what drives customer, right? What makes them excited? What makes them buy something versus the other one, and the choices that are or might be available to them, right? That's your competition, right? That's the idea there. So as you can see later on, segmentation is trying to understand, segmenting people in terms of what drives them. Okay, what drives them can be captured in multiple ways. And one of them is who they are, right? Understanding who they are is very important. Are they old, young, rich, poor, married, unmarried, right? Because maybe, there are differences, between these groupings. What they do, right? What do they buy? Where do they buy? When do they buy? How much they buy, right? Uh, and that's what we call behavior segmentation. And why they do what they do, right? And there is like their attitudes, their preferences, their aspiration in life, their lifestyle, their communities, their culture, and things like that, right? So basically, all of these red circle, which I borrowed from Bob, right? I used to have a boring slide, but now I have a very nice one, thanks to Bob. It's basically the different facets that you really need to know as a marketer to understand what drives your customers, right? And I'm going to talk about different snippets from this.
Professor,
Yes.
excuse me, I do have one question.
Yes.
So,
And what's your name?
my name is Abdul Ali.
And Abdelali.
Thank you, Professor.
Oh, go ahead.
So this segmentation, these categories to categorize, our customers is we can apply it for individuals or for corporates, or both of them. If
Okay, all
our
right.
B2B or B2C.
Great, Ablani. That's a great question. All right, I think you are hitting something that we call B2C versus B2B, right? B2C means business to consumer, right? Consumer like us, like people, right? And then B2B is if your customer is, let's say, a small business, a retailer, a company, or whatever it is, right? The principle is the same, right? People buy products, right, because they solve their needs, because they do a job, they perform a certain service, right? When you buy a machine, it helps you do something, right? So in some way, the principle is I have a customer. The customers are not the same. Different customers want different things, right? And I'd like to bucket them into groups of homogeneous people or firms, right? Right, in a way that any customers in the same group want more or less the same thing, right? Now it's the same principle, right? Uh, in the sense that whether it's a company or an individual, it's the same thing. Let me tell you why. I think it gets a little complex for a company, right? Because suppose you are selling a coffee service, let's say those one cup kind of coffee machines to, let's say, Columbia University here, right? If you're selling to Columbia, then you have to deal with the purchasing department, and also have to make sure that the people, the faculty, and the staff, right, are happy with those coffee machines, right? So the purchasing manager wants something cheap. The administrator who has to serve some coffee wanted something clean and less headache, right? Because you don't want to boil coffee all the day in the past, right? And the faculty or the worker, the employee wanted that the coffee tastes well and has different flavor and things like that, right? So you have multiple players, right, in some way, right? I can take it a little bit now when we do pharmaceutical marketing, for example, right? In that case, what do we have? A company selling drugs, right? The customer for the pharmaceutical, let's say Pfizer, is what? It could be the doctor, right? Because the doctor prescribes, and in many ways, the doctor kind of, if you market the doctor, then the doctor will push the product to the customer, to the patient, right? Right. But lately, somehow with the internet, right, patients are becoming smarter, right? In the sense that they go to the website, they read about medicine, the side effects, and they started to kind of challenge
Bypass.
the doctor when they prescribe something. How about this and this, right? So in that case, now the role of the pharmaceutical company is to move from B2B to B2C by, by creating awareness, by creating a website, by writing blogs, so that people are aware. And when they go to the doctor, right, they will ask for their medicine, right?
Perfect.
So the first one is called push marketing, right? You go to the doctor hoping that the doctor will push the product to the patient. But now reality is, with the technology, reality is now the patients are demanding the medicine from the doctor. And that's called pull marketing, right? So I think the principle is the same, but the devil is in the detail, right? That's really what I have to say here, right? But
Thank you, Professor.
you have a customer, you have to think about what the needs of the customer. And actually, I would even push you to think, now that you mentioned B2B, to think about the customers,
True.
right? In that
Thank
case,
you.
you'll be scoring 2 goals, right? You play soccer, right? Right?
True.
You
True.
score a goal with the customer and with the customers.
Perfect.
That's a healthy thinking, right?
I'd like to add something to this.
Go ahead.
I was doing research in China for the WD-40 company. You may know what WD-40 is because I'm sure it's in Morocco. It's an industrial lubricant. And we were...
We say in Tunisia, fish fascia.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's some kind of, when you have something stuck, hazards, right?
Yeah.
You spray it over the engine or the lock, right?
Perfect.
To open it. Yep. You had
It's
one.
everywhere. And so we were doing some qualitative research. We were doing some observational work, but we were also doing some focus groups. And we had 4 different segments that we needed to speak to. And this was all for a business to business campaign. But we had to talk to factory managers. We had to talk to purchase managers. We wanted to talk to the people that manage large teams on factory floors. And then we wanted to talk to the actual factory workers. So we had 4 different segments that we needed to understand to figure out who was going to act, how we could talk about WD-40 to the company. Now, the ultimate decision maker would be the purchase manager in China. And interestingly, in China, the people that actually use the product on the factory floor had the least influence over the purchase manager. And in fact, they were reluctant to speak to the purchase manager because they felt that it wasn't really appropriate for them, which was something different from, say, the United States and doing the same kind of research in the States. But because it was a business to business project, we were really focusing on who were the key decision makers, but who were the influencers of the key decisions, and to what extent did they have influence? So for a B2B, if you have a B2B product or service, you have to figure out who are the people that will be making the decisions, who will be the influencers on those decisions, and then focus on them and speak to them to understand how you should be talking about your product or service.
Perfect. It's clear. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
If you don't mind, there is a question from Sarah from GreenTech team. So Sarah is asking, from where do you get that data? Is it through surveys, or do you perform field studies or on-site investigation?
The data that I was just discussing?
No, I think the question is general for all like type of market studies.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
1 second. Yeah. You know, I just forgot the first smartphone. What is that company? Forgot it. It's just amazing.
Nokia.
Not Nokia.
Huawei?
No, not that. What is the smartphone based in Canada, Bob?
BlackBerry. BlackBerry.
Huh?
BlackBerry.
Are you talking about BlackBerry? Yeah, I don't know which one you mean.
Yeah. BlackBerry, exactly. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, BlackBerry. Sorry, you can see that they created the market and they're lost, and I forgot about that. So I think it's a great example when they came up with a BlackBerry, and that's their mistake in some way. Unlike Apple, they wanted to a B2B market, right? And when they did their work, they targeted IT people. And the IT people are very paranoid people. They don't want to mess up with the security system of their companies, right? So it was a big barrier to adoption because the IT people were adamant by allowing the BlackBerry to cross the firewall.
Yeah.
Right? And then BlackBerry was very smart, right? They thought in terms of who is the decision maker, I guess the IT people, and who is the user? It is the manager, the managers, right? So what they did, they targeted the opinion leaders, some senior managers, and they gave them free BlackBerries, right? And they told them, use them as long as you can keep your PC, your desktop open, turned on all the time. Because somehow if it is open, excuse me, then they can take advantage of the BlackBerry. And the more they use it, right, the more they use BlackBerry, the more they get excited about it, to the point that these managers, right, became the evangelical, convincing their IT people to let BlackBerry come in. You understand this?
Mm.
Right? So there are multiple decision makers, but you have to be clever on how to kind of influence the dynamics towards your objective. All right. So, guys, if we can stay here till 1 o'clock or 1 a.m., so we need to move on. But it's fun. It's fun to talk about this. All right. Now, I guess everybody knows Barbie, right?
Barbie.
Barbie.
Yeah, Barbie, exactly.
Yes.
So at one point in time, Barbie on the website, they came up with the idea of, mass customization, meaning different Barbie for different people, right? You go, to the website and design your own Barbie, right? So because there is like a continuum in the sense that I can make different products for different people, that's one, or I can produce one Barbie for everybody. Uh, so they tried this, and the way that they thought about it, and this is a good way to think about your kind of products, because every product can be described based on attributes, right? What are the attributes of a Barbie? The face, right? The whether it is light, ivory, tan, or brown. The eye color, right? Whether it is blue, green, or brown. Lip color, angel rose, cranberry, very cherry red. And hairstyle, soft flip, stylish, pulled back, long, wavy. You see that from there, right? The hair color, light blonde, golden blonde, fiery red, chestnut brown, brown, black, right? You can see from here, you can see that if you allow people to design their own Barbies, you will have to produce 864 Barbies. Why? Because there are 4 choices of face, 3 choices of color, 3 choices of lip colors, and 4 choices of hairstyle, and 6 choices of hair color. If you multiply 4 by 3 by 3 by 4 by 6, you will get 864, right? I calculated this before coming here. So that's one way to do that. And let's do that just to see how earlier you asked, how can we understand people preferences, right? This is one simple way. Now, I'd like to go to Abdul Ali because he asked question and we answered. So now he has to work for us. Right. Okay. So, Abdul Ali, are you married or
Yes.
you have kids?
And I have 2 daughters.
Oh, wow. This is good. I think this is, I picked the right person here. Okay. 2 daughters, right? Oh, hi. How are you?
She left.
Nice. Make sure that your father is paying attention here. Okay. Okay. So you can see here, right, in face, right, there are light ivory, tan, and brown. So if you want to design this Barbie for your daughter,
Mama,
what face would you buy? Would you, huh?
Ivory. Ivory.
Ivory. Okay, ivory. All right, good. For eye color, blue,
Brown.
green, brown. Okay. All right, brown. Okay, this one. Okay, brown. Good. Lip color,
Cranberry.
cranberry. Good choice. All right, hairstyle,
Long wavy.
long wavy. And then the last one here. How can we get to that one here? Yeah. And the hair color,
Brown.
brown. Okay, brown. All right. Now I'd like to get 2 other volunteers here. I'd like to talk to man. Rashid Al-Umari. Are you with us?
Yeah,
Hi, Rashid. How are you?
fine. You?
Are you following me here?
Yeah.
Okay. So Abdul Ali made his choice for he designed his own Barbie. What is your Barbie?
Okay.
And you can give
Uh,
it to anybody. Your dog. Are you married?
no, not yet.
Okay. Enjoy it while it lasts. I'm married with 30 years now. So, all right. So, Rashid, what
Yeah.
kind of face do you like?
Okay. Brown.
Brown. Okay. And eye color.
Uh, Brown.
Brown. Wow. I, okay. And lip color.
No, cherry red.
Cherry.
Red.
Okay. Cherry. Okay.
Yeah.
And hairstyle.
Also long wavy.
Long wavy. Okay. And hair color.
Black.
Black. Okay. All right.
Thank
Now
you.
I need to ask a third person here. I see Sarah. Oh, not Sarah. I need a man again. All right. So I just want to see who are the men here. Murad. Murad Twil. We became friends on uh,
Hello.
on LinkedIn. Good. All
Yeah,
right.
yes.
All right. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Okay. Nice meeting you. So Murad,
Yeah,
what kind of
Muad,
huh?
without R.
Okay. The face is
Uh, white.
white. Huh?
Yes.
Light. Okay. And then eye color,
Blue.
blue. That's a good choice. You're different at least. Okay, good. And then lip color,
Cranberry.
cranberry. Okay, good. And hairstyle,
Is this a curly
curly.
in the
Okay,
church?
okay. With the
No,
curly
it's a,
is what here? Bob, which one is the curly one?
okay.
Long wavy, maybe.
Okay. Wait.
Okay, we'll choose for you. Okay. And then hair color,
uh, Yellow,
yellow. Okay, that's blonde, I guess. What is it?
blonde.
Light blonde, light blonde. Okay, good choice. All right. Are you married?
Yeah. No.
Not yet. Okay. All right. So I'm asking these questions for fun, but just to kind of get the idea that if I ask everybody in this room, in this Zoom room here, different people want different things, right? And I just want to emphasize that that's what we call heterogeneity. And heterogeneity in marketing is an opportunity, right? If everybody wants the same thing, business become boring and there is no opportunities, right? So keep that in mind that different people want different things, right? That's marketing 101 principle. You see that from this, right? So what does that imply? That implies some implication for the product that you launch, right? If you produce one product, one Barbie, right? Do you think that Barbie, I think you probably will take an average. I don't know what it means here, an average, right? But the average, do you think it will appeal to anybody?
No, no,
No. The average will not.
Yeah,
because people have different preferences.
yeah. This is like if you are producing, somebody wants a coffee without sugar, and another one wants coffee with sugar, sweet one, right? And you produce one with mid-level sugar. Do you think they'll be happy? No, right?
No,
No,
Exactly.
no, absolutely not.
That's
You
exactly
maybe lose, you maybe lose both of them.
exactly. That's the point I'm trying to mention. That when you take an average and you launch the average, you may be hated by everybody, right? That's really the problem with taking an average. Actually, my statistics professor put it in a bad way. He said, like, if you have somebody whose half is in a freezer, the other half is under fire, right? On average, the person is fine, right? But in reality, the person is suffering. So I'm just trying to be extreme here, just to tell you, beware of this. try to respect what people want, and try to produce something kind of that comes as close as possible to what people want, right? Because the average will defeat the purpose. So that's point number one. So one product does not really help here, but the other extreme is you produce multiple products, right? The extreme is like different Barbie for different people, that is produced in 864. Is that a good idea?
I guess not,
Why
It's
not?
not a good idea.
Why not?
It
because
might
it's
be
gonna,
costly.
Hmm?
yeah,
It must be
It might be.
costly and
costly, right? You said costly, right? Costly in the sense that, costly for production, I guess, right? What else could be a problem?
It is impossible to satisfy everyone's need.
No, what I'm saying is like, suppose you give everybody what they wish, right? You come
uh,
design, you come to the website and design your own Barbie. Suppose, I said, what's the problem with that?
Mm, um,
you will have each time to adjust the process of making this Barbie, each Barbie alone.
Yeah, so I think you basically have to you have to use like 3D printing, and the cost of the Barbie will be much higher than if you are producing them on a mass scale. I think that's one point. The other point here, you're making the assumption that the people can design their own Barbie.
true.
Do they? Probably not, right? Uh, that's the second one. The third one here, if you are selling this in a store, which store is going to give you all the shelf space to carry 864 such Barbies, right? I think you'll be lucky if you put 2 or 3, let alone 864. So that's one problem. The other thing also from consumer behavior is that actually people don't like too much choice. Actually, a colleague of mine at Columbia, Sheena Iyengar, she did like an experiment where she went on Broadway here and she put a table, and on the table there are few choices of jam, right? Jam, you understand jam, right? You understand the jam?
Confiture.
Yes, it's very clear.
Confiture,
Yes.
confiture, exactly, confiture, right? So in one table, she put a few choices, let's say 3 or 4, 5. And in the other table, this is another day, of course, she put a table with many, many choices, let's say 20 choices of jam. What happened? So when you have too many of them, she found that people would stop and look, but they don't buy, right? But if there are few, right, then more people stop. No, less people stop, but the people who stop are more likely to buy, right? Because the first time is like you see 20, you get confused. Oh, let's go, right? For the second one, right? Oh, you see jam. I need the jam, and there are 5 choices or 3 choices. I can pick quickly and go. So what I'm saying here, right? There is a cost to choice, right? It confuses people, and maybe you should limit it to some degree. Okay. So what I'm saying here, the other part I'd like to say is that I don't think that people are completely different from each other. And it's fair to assume that you can group them into homogeneous groups, which we call segments, right? And that's really the idea of market segmentation, which is trying to get closer to what groups of people would want, right? And as you will see later on, right, over time, over the life cycle, right, when people become comfortable and they know more about the category, right, the market gets segmented and more segmented in smaller groups, right? And that's how you start from few product or few segment, and then it gets gets smaller and smaller and smaller over the life cycle, right? You can see here for Barbie Now, there are miniature segments depending on gender, depending on culture, age, profession, whatever it is, right? You can see how it gets more and more precise over the life cycle. Because suppose you are the first player, right? You start with few segments, one or two, but over time you try to expand to other segments, and if you don't do it, your competition will come and eat your lunch by catering to other sub segments of your big segments. Bob, you want to say anything here?
No, keep going.
All right, good. Okay, I have to make presentation here. I put that one from Saudi Arabia. All right, and this is from Egypt. And okay, so let's see if you understood the stuff. This is a story from a company called Quidel. And Quidel is actually a B2C, B2B company. It caters to hospitals. But at some point in time, they said, well, I think maybe we should also expand to B2C, right? To sell their medical stuff to consumer like us, right? And one of the earliest product was a pregnancy test kit. This is the stuff that women check whether they're pregnant or not, if you don't know. All right. So the question that they faced, as Abdelali was talking earlier, is segmentation the same in business B2B versus B2C? How can we segment this consumer market, basically, right? If we had time, we could do like a breakout room and spend some time, but I don't think we have. But I want to take 2-3 minutes, right, to think about it on your own and come up with an answer to this. How would you approach this in Morocco? All right, you understand the question? Do you have any question about what I'm asking?
It's fine.
You follow me, guys? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't get
Yes.
your question.
Yeah. Bob, you can put them in breakout room if you want.
I don't have control of this.
Okay, then maybe Lena can do that. Can you do that? Or if you can't, it's fine too. I cannot hear you, Lena.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, Bob. Sorry, Karen. How many breakout rooms do you need?
How many people do you have?
We have our 24.
24. Make them in groups of 3.
3.
8
Okay.
is 24.
Okay. So we'll put 60 or maybe 5 teams that we are -2. Let's say I would put five breakout rooms. Okay.
Randomize them. I know, make it random, please. I want them to know each other because that's the pleasure of life. Meeting other people that you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want randomly? Okay.
They make it randomly, yes.
Okay. Okay, let's go.
Talk a little bit among yourselves, right?
Yes, let's go.
You have 3-4 minutes, okay?
So we go ahead. I think that you are receiving the invitations.
Yeah.
Mr. Kamal.
Yes.
So we have this. Sorry. We have Cordell, and she wants you to be in Morocco, and we need to discover how it's gonna. She needs. It needs to segment the market.
Yeah, in Morocco. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 hour and 2 minutes. Yeah, yeah.
It'd be fine.
Okay.
Jamel and I will stay here all night if you want us to. We love doing this so much.
With Tunisia, we stayed 3 hours. So anyway, let's move on. Let's save time, you know. Go ahead. I guess Bob will talk to your team.
Yeah, where's my
Okay. Yes, we are here. So we started by segmenting our customers first by the age. Then we thought maybe of college girls or married women or non-married women. After that, we even thought about people about women who would prefer positive results and others that would prefer a negative results.
Okay.
Then we started to come up with other ideas. For example, the women who will prefer a positive positive result in terms of confidentiality. What? Hello?
Bless.
Hello?
We're here.
Yeah. I said for the women, for example, that want a negative result. For example, we can they can buy our product, for example, online for more confidentiality. And for women who prefer a positive, we can just sell it in public space.
Very nice. Okay, very good. So let's go to my team also, since we don't have that much time. Sarah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So from our side, we first discussed that like we try to see like according to the culture, we try to determine like what the age our segmentation could fall into. Then we try to see like accessibility, and then of course like we try to see if the people that we're going to buy or the people that we are going to target, are they like literate or not, so that you know like they can know how to use the actual device.
Okay. So you know, because of time, I just want to say a few things. And this is this is a start, it's a good start, right? When we had some discussion, we spent some time. I don't have the data. How do you expect me to come up with an answer to this? But at the end, we converged, because if you are a consultant, right, or we are doing it in the company, I think the first part is to have to initiate some initial discussion about what are the different, what segment do we expect, just based on what you know. Maybe you should introduce talk to salespeople, talk to some other manager internally to start a discussion like the one that you had with Bob and me, or among yourselves. And once that discussion highlights some hypotheses, like, for example, age. Now, age, I think, and married, I think the two are correlated, right? You know, people get married at a later age than earlier age. So I would ask, why did you pick age, right? Because remember, I'm trying to understand who they are and why they do what they do, and basically the reason for why. Why is it? So in this case, why? Anybody can say why you picked young versus old, or married, non-married? Somebody would say something here.
Yes, I would like to give my answer for the age. It's important because there is no girl who can be pregnant under 16 years old.
Yeah.
So also, if it's about culture, as Sarah said, if they have sexual relationship and they want to make sure and they want to be aware of if there is any future consequences. So this is why we focus on the age, mainly in this product of pregnancy tests.
Okay. Anybody else want to add something here to age? Why age?
Yeah, yes, I would like to add one thing. When we see the 4 Ps, I mean, the age will help us once we will start about promotion.
Yeah.
So once we want to communicate, I mean, with this segment, so we need to adapt our message to this segment.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's good to think ahead in terms of, by segmenting, is it going to impact my marketing strategy? That's very important, because if the people require the same product, why, or the same communication, why should I group them? That's a very important point. Anything else? To age?
Can I go for it?
Please go ahead. Yes, Sarah.
So in my opinion, I would go for age because like my friend stated so far, when can a woman first get pregnant? So for example, I would have changed the metric for this, not age specifically, but physiology, like when is the woman can get pregnant.
Yep.
Then there is of course the like Abdulali stated, the segmentation for later on. And then there is like the mindset, like how people think, especially according to the culture. So for example, we may find out later on when we want to do some kind of statistics, like for example, most of the women that gets pregnant, like they fall into, for example, they are adults, for example, or married. So we may find out these kind of things, but of course it will depend according to the culture. But age is an important factor in every study, because there is also the fact of, like paying or not, like, can that person pay for the product as well or not?
Okay. So, let me, I said earlier that age and marriage are correlated, right? Because, you tend to be married at an older age than younger age, right? So in that case, let me ask a question in a different way. Why married versus unmarried? Why should we consider this?
Can I go for it?
Yeah, please.
As I said in the beginning, it's maybe about people who would, women who would like a positive result and others who would like a negative result. Married women would prefer to have a positive one, and yeah.
Okay, and that's exactly basically, basically these two segments are different. If you are a young girl, it's really a bad thing, and it's not something, it's not a happy outcome. For a married woman, assuming that she wants the baby, right? Then it's a good outcome. But of course, at one point in time, you don't want baby, and it becomes also, if you get too old,
Exactly.
then it becomes like this, right? So basically, the attitude towards pregnancy is an important part here to understand. As you can see, I'm starting with age, but even the discussion here is highlighting deeper and deeper thoughts that can help us understand consumer behavior, right? All right. So you also mentioned education. Why education here? Sarah, I think your group mentioned education. Why education?
So Yusra raised the education fact because she told that if the person isn't educated, they won't know how to handle the device.
Okay, so they cannot read the thing, right? That's one.
Yeah.
What else?
They won't know yet.
Yeah. What else in education?
Like,
I will also.
Oh yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. I will also add that they will not be really open-minded for a new technology. Like they will prefer to go to doctor or like to laboratory to do like a basic test rather than trying a new kind like of test or a new technology, I will say.
Very nice. You highlighted a few points that are important here. I want you to kind of start with this and ask why and why and why, because that gets you a deeper understanding of the consumer. So education, yes, one thing is because if they cannot read, then how do you expect them to buy this stuff? You also mentioned something, if they are more educated, they are more open to be innovative, right? We call them in marketing the innovators, right? And they're more likely to adopt something like this than people who are not educated, right? That's a very important thing. You mentioned also, if they're not educated, they are more likely to, basically there is a correlation between education and income, right? And the people who are educated tend to have higher income, and they tend to be more urban than, let's say, rural, right? So from this part, you can see you're digging deeper here. And for a rural lady, right, why should they buy this? First, it may not be available there. I don't think that she'll go to a retail shop there, Atar, to kind of to buy from that. And you can understand in our culture there, if Atar, the retailer, would know that you bought that product, you become news immediately in the whole town, right? So there are privacy issues that but at the same time, healthcare is free in rural area. They can go to the dispensary, the dispensaire, right? And then they can get it for free from the, the local doctor, right? Why should I pay, right, for this stuff, right? So you can see here by digging deeper and deeper, you will have a good understanding of what's going on. So, but this is like an internal discussion in some way that, as I mentioned for the group, Bob and I teach a class like how do you take this now to kind of talk to human, go and talk to people, real customer, and show them this product and tell them how to react to it, whether they like it or not. If they like it, why? If they don't like it, why? Right? And you can dig deeper and deeper for about the barrier to adoption, and if some people are excited, why are they excited? And you will see, you will learn quite a bit. And that's kind of, I'm trying to distinguish your engineering mind, because you're excited about something, you know it 100%, for somebody who had no clue about it, and maybe doesn't even pay attention to it. They don't care, right? So you need to minimize that gap, only when you understand what, once you talk to these people, and once you talk to them, then you start to see a better picture, and maybe you follow up with a survey or something like that to test this expectation and these hypotheses. And actually the course that Bob and I teach really will go through this process. Okay, so what they did actually is along this line, and they came up with two segments, the hopeful and the fearful.
No, you're not showing your slides.
I'm not?
No.
Oh, because I am probably not sharing anymore.
Right, you have to go back to sharing.
Share screens. Thank you, Bob. I don't know what to do without you. Do you see it now?
No.
No, okay. Let me press again.
There you go. There you are.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
There you go.
You know what happened in Singapore, right? This professor is teaching for 2 hours, right? Have you heard the story? And he's a professor of math.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, for 2 hours, he was on mute. And at the end, somebody, they sent him email, they did everything, and he didn't read them, right? And what happened, after 2 hours, somehow he came back to his senses, and they told him that we didn't listen to anything. Look at search the Singapore professor who didn't talk for 2 hours, who was on mute for 2 hours. All right, thank God. Just here it's like the PowerPoint slide. Okay, so they came up with two segments, hopeful and fearful, and this is called attitudinal segmentation, right? The other one, young, old, is really demographic, but it's cheap one. As I told you here, age and marital status are correlated, right? Right. And the other one is education, and the rural, urban, and income are correlated. So in that case, it's best to stay at high, right? Abstract, and you catch this at the attitude. So the hopeful and fearful, right? And you can see here the hopeful are most likely to be married, they want children, and the other one are fearful, tend to be younger. You can see that, right? That's one. So they came up with two products. They're identical in the box, but the package is different. One of them is called Conceive, to connote the baby and the hope. The other one is Rapid View, right? Which is tell me the result as soon as possible. I am desperate, right? So the package is a pink box, smiling baby, right? And the brick lettering mauve background is depressing. The shelf location, they sold it in the pharmacy in different location. One of them is in near ovulation test kit. The other one is near the prevention, near condoms. And the last one is the price is $9.99 for the Conceive brand and $6.99 for the Rapid View, right? I think this example, which is real, actually, it happened, it's quite telling about the importance of segmentation and the distinction between strategy, right? Determining the kind of groups that you're going to go after. And the other one is how to play. What would be your product and what would be your price? Any question on this? I know we are late. Okay.
No question in the chat.
Thank you. All right, good. Another one that I have to say quickly here, this is called behavioral segmentation, what people do, right? And this casino, basically they have a database. This is like CRM, customer relationship management. They group their people based on two criteria, right? The frequency, how often they come to the casino, and the other one is how much they spend in the casino, right? So one of them is called frequency, the other one is called monetary value. And they came up with two segments, right? There are two segments here, you know, the low frequency people and high frequency people, right? The people who come often versus the people who come rarely, the people who spend little and the people who spend a lot, right? And they try to see how can they expand their revenues or their profit from these customers. The point here for these people here, this segment here, these people, they spend a lot, but they come infrequently. They rarely come. What do you want? They want them to come more often, right? The people who come frequently here, right, but they spend little, what you want them to do is to get them to kind of spend more when they come to the casino. They come often, which is good, but they don't spend as much, right? So, so these people, they call them these people here who come little, you know, frequently, but they don't spend much. They call them spending upside or budget upside. How can we get them to spend more? Budget upside. For these people, they come, whenever they come, they spend a lot, but they don't come quickly, often, and they call them frequency upside. How do we get them to come more often? So that's the idea that they came up based on looking at the data, and they went and tried to see what's happening. So they observed the people who come frequently, right? And they looked at their behavior within the casino. And they realized that these people, the people who come frequently, they come late at night to the casino. Apparently, these people, apparently, I think somebody, if they can mute their phone, their speaker.
Yes, please.
Yeah, apparently these people, they go to another casino, they lose their shirts with the competition, and they come out to take some oxygen. And then suddenly they didn't go to Harrah's and they enter. And when they enter, they don't have deep pocket, they lost it already, right? So the question for them, how can we get them early, right? And what they did an experiment where they tried sending them coupons, right? Let's say $20, that is redeemable early in the evening, right? So in that case, to make sure that they come to Harrah's the first, they lose their shirt in Harrah's, and then they can go to the competition later at night. For the people who come rarely, but they spend when they come, they have something in the casino that if you lose a lot of money, they give you 5% back. Suppose you lost $100, they give you $5 back. Of course, the $100 is nothing. These people can lose $10,000, right? They give them, or more, they give them 5% back. Because they want them to come back often, they told them, okay, we'll give you we'll give you 5% if you redeem it tonight, or we can give you 10% if you redeem it in the next 2 weeks, right? And people become greedy and they come more often. Of course, before establishing these policies or these marketing tactics, they tested them and they found that there's a good return on investment from them. You got the idea? So this is like a CRM, customer relationship management kind of thing that is based on behavior, consumer behavior. Okay, so now, okay, these are the arrows basically, how to convert the people who rarely come to come more often, and how to get the people who come often to be big spenders. This is demographic segmentation. I think you know the Old Navy, Gap, and Banana Republic. You know, Old Navy is catering to the young people with low income. Gap is for middle income, middle age, and Banana Republic is upscale, right? That's another example here. All right, I think, Bob, maybe I should stop here. I would skip targeting, right? If you guys want to stay later on, I can come back to it later on. But for now, I'd like to be respectful of Bob's thing here. But I'm probably, if you give me 2 minutes, Bob, this is important. Here we are in the business, you know, in your startup, you are in the business of value creation. You are producing something that makes people happy, entertained, make them life easier. You're adding some value, right? That's what I call value creation. And there's a story here from Nordstrom. I guess you know this company. It's an upscale kind of department store. In the 70s, right? Somebody, some crazy person came to Nordstrom and brought with him 4 tires. Remember, Nordstrom does not sell tires. They sell, you know, fashion stuff, and, you know, it's like a department store, right? And he went to the sales associate and said, I'm returning these 4 tires, right? So this is becoming like a legend, but it did happen in 1970, actually, or 1975. So the sales associates, because the company kind of cherished customer service and customer satisfaction, called some tire store, and he told them about the tires, and he told them how much would this resale value from this tire cost. So the tire store told him they would probably value at $25 each. So the sales associate simply redeemed 25 times 4, you know, for 4 tires, $100 with no question asked, right? In spite of the fact that Nordstrom, you know, never sold this guy anything in life, and never sold him tires, and they never sold tires in their life. So, but the sales associate basically gave him the $100. So is this marketing? Is this customer centricity? Would you do this? Any reaction?
Probably not,
Why not?
because it's kind of waste of time.
Yeah. So a waste of time, basically, here, what you are saying here, this is some kind of crazy guy. You don't invest on this crazy guy, right? Bringing 4 tires to a department.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I think probably the guy is crazy in the sense, because I think this store, it used to be another store there that used to sell tires there. But when Nordstrom moved to that area, they rented that store and they put Nordstrom in. But the guy is crazy to the point that he didn't distinguish between Nordstrom and the old store where he bought the tires, right? So it's not worth investing your resources on this person here. Basically, invest on the customer who are useful to you, rather than customer who are going to waste your resources. Any other point? I
Exactly.
just want to say something else. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody else? All right. So anyway, they think it becomes a legend, and you can, if you can Google Nordstrom tire, you'll get tons of stuff. To the point now, it became a legend, and Nordstrom associates itself with this tire. If you go to Nordstrom 59th Street in New York City, you will see this tire hang in the entrance of the store, right? And when I searched this morning, you can see the association between Nordstrom and the tire. So they're getting a good mileage out of it because it's all about customer service, and they do well in that. It's very inspiring. So I watched some video today about a lady who lost her diamond in the store, and the store basically asks every the store cleaner, right, when they clean the floor with with what that when they clean the store, to search for diamond. So what is the thing that we use for cleaning the floor, Bob? I forgot now.
Oh, Swiffer?
No, not Swiffer. The other one, the one for
Vacuum cleaner?
the vacuum cleaner. Somehow it just disappeared in my head. All right. So they checked every bag from every department, from every vacuum cleaner, right, to find that diamond, and they found it. And you have seen that emotion from the customer. It is crying. She's crying, and she never forget that. So they mean customer service. They mean business, and the customer respect them for that, right?
Yeah.
I think another thing here, you cannot fool the customers. You have to be truthful to you. You have to define your business the way you believe in it, right? And you should be passionate about it. And that video was very, the lady was crying because how Nordstrom touched her heart. Because this is like a diamond ring. Not only is it expensive, it's about from her wedding, and it means a lot to her. And it's just amazing of a story. You have to be truthful. That's what I'm saying here. When you develop these things here, don't lie. Be truthful to who you are and stick with it. It will be rewarding in the long term. Now, as I said, Nordstrom has gained from this, but what I want to say now is that we are not in the business of charity or serving crazy people. We are in the business of creating value and capturing the value for the business to be sustainable. Otherwise, right, we won't exist in the long run. Yeah. I don't think Nordstrom can afford paying everybody who has worn tires, right? Nobody, right? But it's a nice story to illustrate, the first part, right? Touch the heart of people in one way or the other, right? And I love this statement from Booz Allen Hamilton, which is a consulting firm. Customer-centric firm understand not only what the customer value, which is what drives the customer that we talked about it earlier, but also the value the customer represents to their bottom line, right? When you target, make sure you target the worthwhile customer, not everybody. You cannot make everybody happy. You should choose your battle, especially early on as a startup. Right, that's what I have to say. Sorry, Bob. I thought this is an important point.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we can. You'll get it. And so you want to take Bob? You want to give them a few minutes?
Yeah. If everybody should just stretch, and if you have a cat or a dog, go and get it, and come back in about 3 minutes. And Kamel, do you want to have me share my screen?
Of course, yeah.
So I'm going to try to share my screen.
Okay.
Oh, I can't start. You have to give it yours up. Okay.
That's
now I'm going to share my screen, and I need to share. Okay, wait a minute now. Sure I can share.
Bob, I'll be back. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Lena, do you see my presentation up here?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, good. So it's actually the same one that Kamel had, but I'm going to go to a different spot. And we only have about a half an hour, so I'll go pretty quickly. but I should be able to. Good. Lena, where are you?
I'm in London.
London. Oh,
Yeah.
how is it there?
It's freezing a little bit, but that's fine. Hopefully, still on lockdown, and hopefully they will decide to open everything by March.
Oh boy. Well, I just got my second Pfizer shot yesterday.
Oh, great, Pfizer.
Yeah, but I had to wait outside for 3 hours in a line in the snow.
In the snow, 3 hours. Wow.
Yeah, there was a problem because we had a very bad storm. And so we had to wait, but I got my first shot 3 weeks ago and I just got my second one now. So
Oh, it was the second one already. Oh,
second
great.
one. Yeah, but
And how do you feel?
I feel fine. My wife said to me, "You sure you're going to be able to go to Morocco tomorrow?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'd love to go to Morocco." And so I feel great. I have, my arm, if I move it a little bit, it hurts, but otherwise it's fine.
It's fine. And your wife as well got her shot?
My wife works for a healthcare group, and so she actually got hers a little more recently,
Okay.
a little before that I got mine.
Okay. And which vaccines do you have now in the US? You have the Pfizer, the Moderna?
That's it. We're waiting for J&J. What's it like in London? What do you have?
So
You have
AstraZeneca. So they started with AstraZeneca mainly. And they started actually quickly because they are nearly now to 15 million doses. And they are really targeting. Yeah, already. So they are really quick.
So will you be getting yours soon?
No, actually, they do it actually by age. So they want to give everyone by September 2 doses, and then they will start the other, how can I say,
I see.
until 50s. And then they will start.
Okay, so you need to stay inside then, right?
Yes, we still, and the kids at home and everything, I think we will be still in, how can I say, half lockdown till, let's say, the summer, maybe. I'm quite sure.
Very hard.
Yes, very hard.
How are we in terms of having people back?
I think that we are back. We were waiting for 3 people, but we can start, I think.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We only have about a half an hour. Kamel, I'm sure, will be joining us again. But I'm going to talk a little bit about brand positioning. And think about brand positioning along the lines of what we were talking about in understanding first your best segment and targeting that segment, but then what are you going to tell those people in those segments about your brand? And positioning is the way you start to think about talking about your brand. So a way of defining it is, it's the basic way, the primary way that a company will differentiate its brand from competition. So how is my brand different from my competitor's brand is the big question, because if it's not any different, why would a consumer buy your brand over the competitor's brand? Unless maybe it's cheaper, but that would be a difference too. So maybe it's price that it's differentiated on. But whatever it's differentiated on is the way you start to get towards positioning. A positioning could be, we're the cheapest brand, but usually companies like to think, and Kamel was talking a lot about value, is what is the value, what is the special value of this brand over a competitive brand? And it's a way of transforming what might be a commodity to something that is a brand. So it's more than just a product. It's more than just, you could say, here's a soft drink. Well, if every soft drink basically tastes the same and is packaged the same and is priced the same, there's no brand. But if one particular soft drink, maybe it's called Coca-Cola, starts marketing itself in a particular way, it can transform itself into a brand that's different from the other similar kinds of products in the category. And of course, when you start to position yourself in a way, you're asking the consumer or the customer to trust you because you're making a promise. You're saying this brand is going to do something for you. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to quench your thirst in a way that no other brand does. it's a better buying experience, whatever it might be, but they have to believe you. That trust has to be there. So there were two people many years ago that came up with a definition of positioning. And they said, positioning is not what you do to a product. Positioning is what you do to the mind of the prospect, meaning the customer. Where do you place your product in their mind? Now, I like to think of positioning as being about both the heart and the mind. But the positioning of your brand, the way you talk about it, the promise that you make, should be motivating to your intellect and also to your feelings. Mm-hmm. And it should be very different from competition. So I'm not going to go through this long list. You can read this later. But if you're thinking about your own startups and you're thinking about a way that you would position yourself, the way that you would talk about yourself to your customers, you could go through this list and make sure that you're clear, that it's distinctive, that people understand what you're talking about. Is it competitive enough? So you can go through all of these. And then the final one, of course, is it supportable? Is it, if there's a science behind it, or is there a legal consideration? It has to be legal too. But you can go through that later and you can get a sense of what I'm talking about, because I really want to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Because it's one thing to start talking about positioning in some abstract way, but think about coffee. I imagine a number of you are coffee drinkers. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, getting some smiles.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. A lot of people drink coffee. And the question is, if you're a coffee product that wants to be a coffee brand, how do you position yourself? That is, how do you set yourself apart from the other brands in the category and give yourself a kind of identity so that in their minds and in their hearts, they think about you in a certain way. So I picked out some American brands, but some of these are actually global brands. But I want to give you some sampling of how some different brands, some US based, but some global, will have positioned themselves. So for example, there's a brand called Chock full of nuts. Now, coffee, you could say coffee is coffee. In fact, the only thing for some people that matters with coffee is how it smells, because they always say, I don't know how it tastes, I just know how it smells. And that's true of me too. I love the scent of coffee, but once you give it to me to taste, I'm overcome by the scent of it. But so there's much more to it than that. There's this idea that coffee needs this kind of association in people's minds that differentiates it. So what Chock full of nuts did was use this picture that looks like it was taken in the 1950s. But in fact, this is new. This ad is not an old ad. And they're trying to say, if you really look at this, you see chat room. What they're saying is that we want to associate our brand with a way that people got together over a cup of coffee and spent time. And the chat room is a play on words, because obviously it's in a world where everything is online. And if you look at what we call the body copy, it starts off with, remember when chatting meant meeting face-to-face with a friend over a cup of coffee. Now you could say, well, what does that have to do with positioning? Well, and with the brand? What it has to do with Chock full of nuts is saying, this is where we want to play. We want to, and this is what Kamel was talking about, the segment of consumers that we want to play against are the segment of consumers that long for this face-to-face interaction over a cup of coffee. And we want to be the coffee that they think about when they get together. There's another ad that's not from them, but it's also along the lines of just an experience, user experience, your customer experience. And that's about just brewing a cup of coffee and having laughter together for a good time with friends. So very similar. These are similar kind of spaces. One is face-to-face and one potentially is virtual. I suppose we could all be having a great time having a cup of coffee and laughing about it. But you can see how they're a little bit different. So then there are other coffees, like there's Folgers. And Folgers is a coffee that was very much about home and family and the scent of coffee And what Procter & Gamble did, and they didn't just do this in the United States, they did it all over the world. In fact, there's a commercial that I've seen not long ago where they did a commercial in the UK at Christmas time, where a soldier comes home and he smells the coffee, and the first thing he thinks about is basically, I'm home, and coffee represents home, and coffee represents family, and the other members of the family are waking up when he's home, and the brand is associated with love and family and home. And it's the best part of waking up is smelling that Folgers aroma, because it brings back all those wonderful memories. That's very different from what those other two brands I was just talking about, including Chock-full of Nuts, was doing. Then there's the idea that another brand talks about, it's just the state of mind. When you drink coffee, it makes you feel free. Maybe that's the caffeine. And then all over the world, and we see it certainly in the US, and you probably see it in Morocco, although people in the United States think of Moroccan coffee, we think of it as very strong coffee. And we probably automatically say it's some kind of artisan coffee, but in the United States, Folgers and Chock-full of Nuts dominated the market for a long time. And now what we've seen is a kind of cultural movement in the United States towards artisan coffees. So we have a lot of coffee brands that are occupying that space in the mind and in the heart. They're positioning themselves as being artisan. So very different. They're not about an experience. They're not about family and love. They're about the origin of the coffee and the manufacturing of the coffee. And so that's another component. Then the last example is Starbucks, which I imagine they have in Morocco. They seem to be everywhere. And Starbucks was invented as a brand by Howard Schultz. It was a brand before Starbucks. I mean, they existed as a company, but Howard Schultz came up with the idea of selling retail coffee in the same way it was sold in Italy, where the barista had a relationship with the customer, and where customers, I don't know if you can do this in Moroccan cafes, probably you could way before you could in the United States, but you can just sit for a long time. I don't know if this would shock you, although if you know anything about the States, you probably would suspect this. We're always on the rush. For a long time, people didn't sit in coffee shops for 2 hours with 1 cup of coffee or 2. We would just go in and get a cup of coffee and drink it and leave. But Starbucks changed all of that, and it was based on the Italian model of just sitting and enjoying a cup of coffee, and think of the Starbucks place as a third place or a third space. So there's home, there's work, and there's Starbucks as a place to go. That is a very different positioning than all of the other brands. It's out of home coffee, of course, but it's also telling people, rather than just making coffee at home, having a cup of Folgers, or maybe making Chock-full of Nuts for a friend, or even drinking artisan coffee at home, come to Starbucks and experience our coffee, and of course, all the other things they sell you, and it's positioning the brand in a very different way. So for all of you with your startups, what you want to do is you want to think about all the possibilities that you can, how can you talk about your brand? How can it appeal to people? And you can't really know what that is until you try different things. So I want to give you an example of 2 different types of positioning, and one of them is coming directly from what Kamel was talking about in terms of really 2 things. One of them was the value proposition and the idea of value, and the other one is segmentation. So a few years ago, Procter & Gamble created Febreze. It's a spray that would render smelly fabrics odorless, so chairs and couches and even sometimes carpets. And does Febreze exist in Morocco?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised. Procter & Gamble seems
to be everywhere.
Everywhere. But when they first introduced it in the United States, it failed in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to ask everybody, based on the little bit I've told you, and let's just say Febreze, you didn't have it yet in Morocco. What would you have done to, if you tried it out and you tested whether or not the product was efficacious, it seemed to do its job, what would you do to address the problem? Would you change the product? Would you change the pricing? Maybe it was too expensive. What would you do? Any ideas?
Well, we talked about the place in the mind and in heart. So maybe you need to change the positioning in those 2.
So give me an example. What would you say about it?
Well, it's sometimes we can, get confused about the use of this spray. It's maybe it might remove, a bad smell. So it's like we associate it to, in a place where it doesn't smell good.
Okay.
So maybe we need to change this.
Okay, that's a very good transition for me, because I'm going to talk to you about not only how they got to a positioning, but a market research methodology that can be very effective. It's called ethnography. It comes from a field called anthropology, which Kamel told you is my field. And ethnography is really about going to where people live and work and play and shop and watching them in naturalistic settings. So it's very different from a survey or a focus group. So here was the problem. Whenever people were asked, well, at least some people were asked, do you need a spray for smelly fabrics? They would say, no, not really. Some people would say they needed it, so they sold some Febreze. But they didn't understand what was going on. Why weren't they selling more? So Procter & Gamble sent a team of people to some homes where people live to find out how they cleaned and what kind of scents they had. And they went to the house of a woman with 7 cats. And the ethnographers, these researchers, visited with the woman. They talked to her about her home and her cleaning, and they petted the cats. And she didn't seem to think she had any problem with the smell of the house. She thought that she cleaned, but she didn't think there was an odor. When they left the house, they looked at each other and they said, this woman doesn't think she has a problem. So maybe the reason that she's not interested in buying Febreze is because she has a problem, but she doesn't know she has it. And we need to tell her that she has a problem. So this is exactly what Kamel was talking about when he was talking about segmentation and targeting and positioning. So the segment of people that Procter & Gamble wanted to go after, and it was a large segment, was of people who didn't think their house smelled, whether it was of cats or cigarette smoke, or because they were accustomed to it. They had a problem, and I call it a problem only from the perspective of the research they were doing. They were nose blind, which is actually something real. There are studies on nose blindness where you become so accustomed to a scent or a smell that you don't think it's bad. So for Procter & Gamble, they had these people that didn't think they had an odor. They had this nose blindness. They didn't see a need for Febreze. So Procter & Gamble had to do something to let people know that they had the problem in a message. So they didn't need to change the product at that point. They just needed to do something to change it. So I'm going to see, there are 2 ways there are 2 ways that I can make this work. And I hope I can get to the right one. So let's see if let me try this one more time. Just try this one. No, this one doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to try YouTube. So there'll probably be a little commercial that comes on. So just ignore that. It's not coming on. Not sure why it's not working. Okay, that should work. Oh, here it is.
Can you share your sound?
Sadly, Angela's gotten used to the odor her cat leaves in the couch.
The link is a little slow.
She no longer smells it. Yep, she's gone nose blind. We staged an intervention to help her sister break the news.
Sorry, I guess.
This is exactly what your house smells like. For real? Yes. Oh, you are tripping, really?
Febreze Fabric Refresher eliminates pet odors you've gone nose blind to.
Smells good.
One of the many ways Febreze helps you and your guests. Breathe happy.
So you see what that's all about.
Yeah.
Basically, they did this intervention by showing that giant cat. It was letting the woman know that she was nose blind and maybe she should use Febreze. So it was a brilliant exercise in understanding the market they were going after, positioning the brand, targeting the people, of course, but positioning the brand as a product for people who are nose blind. So it was a kind of behavioral positioning, based positioning, but there was a little bit of attitudinal positioning in there as well. So I like that example, but I want to give you another one very quickly. And this is a product that I worked on, a study that I worked on. And this is why I told you to get your dogs and cats, because we talked about cats and now we're going to talk about dogs. I'm not going to be able to go through this whole one, but I just want to give you an idea of what happens when a company, and imagine, you're all in startups. And I would say that for many companies, they're always in a startup. Good companies are almost always in a startup mode because they have to sometimes reinvent their brands. They have to reposition their brands. Febreze was a new brand that they had to figure out how to position. I was working with this company called Freshpet, and they had a brand that they had to figure out how to improve the positioning on, because it was a product, it was a dog food product, is a dog food product. And it's found, there are a number of different versions of it, but one of the versions that they wanted to focus on, in fact, the version they wanted to focus on, was found in the refrigerated case. Now, in the United States, you don't typically see refrigerated pet food in supermarkets, in pet stores. They just don't have the space. You're seeing it more now than you used to, of course, because of brands like Freshpet. But for a long time, consumers, it would be invisible to people. They just wouldn't see it. And so Freshpet contacted my company, and they wanted to do some qualitative marketing research, and they wanted it to have a kind of behavioral science idea about it, spin to it. And so they came to my company, and they had a few different questions. They wanted to figure out how to connect with the mindsets of their users, because they wanted to do a better job in keeping them, retaining them, and then go after their prime prospects to deepen their relationship with them, and to also get the people that were not buying Freshpet to stop being on what we called autopilot, just going to the same shelf every time in the supermarket or the pet store, and to stop and look at that refrigerated case and say, I ought to try this. And the idea, the way to do that was to maybe think about different ways of positioning the brand. So we did two types of research, and we did them sequentially. We started off with focus groups, and they were performed by people with PhDs in psychology. Mm-hmm. And then I did these ethnographically informed in-home and in-store research. So I visited people in their homes and I went shopping with them. And then we combined them into one report. And I'm not going to go through all these methods. Later on, you can see what we did in the focus groups. And you can also see what we did in the ethnographies. These are just the different techniques we used. And so from the focus groups, we learned a few interesting things. We learned that people, some things won't surprise you. They didn't surprise us. People love their dogs like they're members of their own family. They know that they have to feed them, but it's more, they don't just do it functionally. There's an emotional connection to it. And then they also, as they were talking, they were saying things like, I feed my human family food they love, and that makes me feel good about myself. Well, think about it. They love their dog. So as they were talking, it occurred to them and to us that maybe their dog could enjoy eating even more than just, chomping it down. The other thing they were saying that was interesting in the focus groups is that they want their dogs to look forward to their meals, almost like their children. They thought of their dogs as really members of their family, like their children. They referred to themselves as pet parents. I don't know if people do that in Morocco. I wouldn't be surprised. I see at least one nodding head, and I'll bet they do it in England too. So I'm doing, they do it in many places. So people would say things like, I like to see them eat with gusto. Again, they almost want to see a smile on their dog's face. And then this person, I love this quote. After she eats, this is her dog, she's in a great mood. She just looks at me with a different expression. I don't know if the dog really has a different expression, but certainly the pet parent thinks so. She jumps on the couch and she licks me. It's like she's saying, thanks, Mom, for taking care of me. So you can see that people, as they talked and we were listening, they really see their pets not only as members of their family, but they should enjoy their mealtime even more, and maybe it should even be equivalent to the very best family moods. So well, I'm not going to ask you this question next, we don't have time, but so my psychologist business partner used a theory in cognitive psychology called cognitive dissonance, and it kind of goes like this, and this is the way we got to a positioning, that if people's dogs are like their families and their eating enjoyment is important to them, but their eating enjoyment really isn't as good as it could be with the typical dog food that they're buying, maybe if they bought Freshpet, their cognitive dissonance would go away. They could make their dog's eating experience as enjoyable as the rest of their family. So feed your dog Freshpet was the idea. So Freshpet was being positioned as a brand that could enable you to really feed your dog the way you feed the rest of your family, to give your dog that experience. And maybe you'd feel less guilty about maybe not giving your dog the kind of experience that you should be giving it. So on the anthropology side of it, there was this. This was someone's
Now, is that your family cutting board too?
No, that's theirs.
They have their own cutting board. Okay. Why is that?
I don't know, just theirs.
And what about the knife?
No, the knife is everybody's.
Okay.
And now, packaging is always a little challenging.
Talk about the packaging a little bit. I mean, do you like it? Do you like the way it works?
It's okay. I mean, if they could have, it could be easier, like if I don't need a scissor, because I do need a scissor definitely, to see what I like is I can see the carrots and all the veggies in there.
You see, now that, what I like is that I can see all the carrots and the veggies in there. She's feeding her dog, but she wants to see all that. Now here's another one. Again, I'm not going to play the whole thing.
So I just want to follow up on Kelly. What Kelly just asked was the way you shop for your meal for your family.
Yeah.
That's what you meant, right?
Yeah,
Kelly?
yeah.
And you said
I would.
that it's similar.
It's simple as a, like these are the type of ingredients and stuff that I like to feed my family and myself.
These are the types of ingredients that I like to feed my family and myself. You can tell from the interview that she had actually already said that to me, but we didn't have the camera on. So I had to get her to repeat it. That sometimes happens in research, but I didn't change her words. So the more I talked to these people, the more I started to explore where Freshpet could fit in the way that they thought about pet food in the category. And the idea that it came from the refrigerator, somebody said, it comes from the refrigerator just like human food, it's fresh. They would enjoy this much better than wet food. They'd think they were eating our food. That's really important. And then there was this whole idea that it was not exactly like the dry food that people get in bags on the shelf or the wet food that they buy in cans. It was better than dry and it was better than wet, but it wasn't the same. And so the positioning for Freshpet in this case was based on a way that people classified it. And so that's anthropologists like to look at the way people, there's something called cognitive classification. And this was a difference between looking at the pet food category as binary, wet versus dry food. Where did Freshpet fit in? Well, if I want to position Freshpet in a new way, why not position it as being it's not wet food, it's not dry food, it's its own kind of food that is actually close to home cooked food. So as you can see from these two quotes, the next best thing to human food, refrigerated food is better than canned. People thought of it in a particular way. They thought of fresh food. We realized that if we could elevate Freshpet as being not only better than dry food, but even better than wet food, without just saying it's better, it's different. It's not the same thing. It was a way of positioning it in a totally different way. So what you can see here is that we use two different ways of thinking to get to positioning. One was psychological, using focus groups. The other one was anthropological, using ethnographies. One was an insight that was very psychologically driven. The other one was more cognitively driven, which relates to psychology for sure, there's no question, but we were looking at it in the full context of classification. And then those positionings, and you can see that those are different positionings. One is about relating the dog food's eating experience to the family and using Freshpet to do that. The other one is separating Freshpet from the category and really elevating it. It's not the same as wet food. It's not the same as dry food. So you're repositioning your competition as being less good. And you may not be able to make the actual marketing claim that we're better, but you can still say that we're different. So after this, there were really three things that the team needed to do, the marketing team, and that you would need to do if you came up with positionings. One of them is to develop some concepts that really fleshed all of this out, something that looked like maybe a picture of the product and some statement about the product. Then you might talk to consumers in focus groups or talk to them online, however you might do it, to get an idea of how the messages were resonating with them. So, and then you'd ultimately do some A/B testing quantitatively, where you test each of these propositions and maybe other propositions. But this is a way of getting to different types of positioning using market research, but also, again, getting back to value. These were value propositions. One value proposition about making the dog to meal like a family meal, another one more from a product focus and separating the product from competition so that when they went shopping, they would say, I'm not gonna buy wet food, I'm not gonna buy dry food, I'm gonna buy Freshpet. That's as much as we, I think, have time for. Are there any questions?
Yes, that's open for the questions. I have a question. I would like to ask, maybe we can come back to the coffee case. When you have actually the position in, let's say, Nespresso, they aim actually to bring your coffee at home and that you can do it as you can get it in the shop. But on the same time, they opened a lot of boutiques when you can come, they invite you to sit and drink and have. So this is really two different positioning. One is at home and the second one is come to us in our boutique. So can we have these two kind of positioning?
Well, you can, it's interesting. Starbucks is a good example in a way, because Starbucks originally was never going to be available in supermarkets. But so it was this about, and Howard Schultz mind, by the way, I'm talking about Howard Schultz thought, I'm going to create this relationship that's barista-like. And I don't want people to make it at home. I want them to come to the Starbucks store and sit there and have more than one cup of coffee and so on. But then eventually he realized, and the company realized, they could also position it as you could sell a kind of Starbucks that you could make at home. So the answer to your question is you can, for one brand, you can actually have two very different kinds of usage experiences. The idea for Starbucks was to, initially, when you think about it, Howard Schultz was talking about this third place, and where you could really kind of hang out for a long time. How could, at home, that has nothing to do with the positioning it for home use, but the idea was that Starbucks was such a great consumption experience, why not bring that home? But it's not a third place.
Bob?
So you can do it, and there are places that have different, both. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts does that. But there are a lot of different products where you can both have the experience out of home and in home. Kamel, what did you want to say?
I just want to say that this is also a life cycle story. You start somewhere, right?
That's right.
And once you have a brand following, right, then you can use them to expand, to other things. Like the customer becomes an asset, and it becomes like a marketing of scope, in the sense that what else can I do? People cannot come 5 times to the store. Right? Why don't I allow them to also take it home, right? So for the breakfast, they come to my store. For lunch, they may come, but for the evening, they may have it at home. So it's a life cycle story. You start somewhere, and once you establish that brand, then you can see what else you can do, right?
And by the way, Starbucks made Starbucks products available in their stores to take home with you. And a lot of cafes, not all, but a lot of cafes, branded cafes, will say, you can take home a pound of our coffee if you want to.
But
May
it
not
is
taste
better to
quite
stay with us. And I have another question about the pets. So for fresh pets, actually, if you consider that they went in the value about family, being as a human, it's really kindness, and you need to bring your pets the best in the food industry, in the pets food industry. So this is the value. But let's say about the product itself, is it really, how can I say, like feeding a human, or is it still food for pets? Because it can be actually an amalgam here about what is the quality of this food. So can we then finally just give our pets food for human and it will be fine?
It's a great question. Interestingly, we could never say, the company could never say, this product, number one, is better than the other brands, because that's a superiority claim. Could we say that it was the same as human food? But it's not. So what you're doing by association is saying, for example, as that woman said, look at all those carrots and veggies in there. Or look at, the other one was talking about it's what she likes to feed her family because it's got a lot of the same ingredients. But I don't think that you would have someone slicing up that fresh pet roll and putting it on a sandwich, a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it could happen, but the truth is that it is different. Now, people would say to us sometimes, and this is how I got to the kind of hierarchy of feed concept, is that they would say that home cooked food, sometimes I give my dog scraps. Sometimes when my dog is sick, I make my dog a little chicken soup or something like that. But it takes so much more time to do that. So Freshpet could brand itself as being almost like the next best thing to, what you would make yourself, to human food. And it's really about, exactly your point, it's a connection. I mean, positioning is a creative process. It's an inventive process. You have to be careful about how you make your claims, because if you make a claim that is not legal or scientifically supported, you're in big trouble. So it was really through a way of saying, for example, it's a statement, it's a declarative statement. It's not wet food, it's not dry food, it's fresh pet. That's an easy claim to make because it's just advertising.
Yeah.
I just want to add another point there, which links back to the definition of what positioning is. It's not what you do to the product, it's what you do the mindset.
In the mindsets, yeah.
It is all
That's
about
exactly.
perception. You used another word earlier. How can you shape that value that you created in the mind of the people, right? And the whole struggle is how to change minds, how to shape them the way you would like them to be shaped. That's the hardest part.
And I want to say,
yes.
I just want to underscore something that Kamel said, which is so important. We teach a market intelligence course. It's essentially a market research course. And the discovery process through interviewing, through questioning, through observation, through the right kinds of survey instruments, all of that, and analysis, even through text mining. There's an enormous amount of information that you can get that will get you to understand exactly what Kamel is talking about. And you have to do that, because if you don't do that, you're really flying blind. So
Definitely.
you need
Because
to do
actually, when you talk about value and the product, the product, actually you can change it. You could optimize the quality. You can do different products. But the value, when it is set in the people mind, it is really hard to change it, or it is hard to optimize it or change. If you have an issue with it, it's really hard to bring something new. So you need to be consistent with what you are saying to people. And that's why we need to define, I think, the positioning in the right way. At the beginning. So do we have margin in changing the value, or is it something that we need to set properly and think about it seriously in the beginning?
Positionings change over time.
Okay.
I mean, that's why Freshpet had asked my company for help, because the positioning they had for the brand wasn't very good. A couple of Columbia professors have done a really nice video on Pepsi and Coke. Kamel, you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And maybe you can share that. And what they talk about is, over decades, how Coca-Cola and Pepsi have changed their positioning. Sometimes it's just their advertising. but there is also something core about the positioning and the values of Coca-Cola versus Pepsi that these professors analyze. And it's a short presentation. It's very good. And I think that, you know, brands aren't stuck in the positioning of a brand is not written in stone. It has to change because the market changes, the consumer changes.
Okay. So, but the positioning when you have at the phase of customer acquisition is different when you are about being the leader or being, how can I say, in the market. You need at least to define who you are and make it actually simple to understand by the customer.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, you know, obviously there are some brands that have had the same positioning for decades. If it's working for them, that's wonderful. But even, you know, if you look at sneaker companies, if you look at car companies, you know, if you go back through, a friend of mine did research on Cadillac and the positioning of Cadillac in the United States in the 1990s is not the same as the positioning of Cadillac in the second decade of the 2000s. So brands need to do that. They have certain core values, but they do need to evolve.
Definitely. I don't know if you have other questions. I just asked too much questions, but yes, Abdelad.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. Well, I have one question. So here, when we talk about positioning, it's usually in comparison with the competitor. Is that true?
Well, you're mindful of where the competition is. You know, what we didn't have a chance to really go through in any detail, although Kamel touched on, and Kamel, you can elaborate if you want to, is that there are you want to essentially create a map of if you're entering a market for the first time, of where your competition is positioning itself, and you want to find the white space that's available to you that will be distinctive. You want to occupy a different space than at least the leading competitor. So it is relative to competition for sure.
The flip side to it is, how do you want to be associated? When I close my eyes, what word I would associate with Abdel Ali, right? Just if they remember one thing, that's a big thing.
Perfect.
Right? You don't want to be remembered as a prophet, right? You just want to remember for something. What is that thing? That is the position. Of course, if you are like somebody else, then they'll confuse you too, right? So you need to have something distinct. That when I see Abdel Ali, I see something.
Perfect.
Right? That's really the idea.
So I ask this question because, I mean, at that stage of all of us here as startups, so we're still far from thinking about our competitors and stuff, but we have to, I mean, from the beginning, we need to position, I mean, our startup in regards to other players in the market.
Yeah, I would say two things about that. First of all, you're absolutely right. But the other thing that you need to do, so it's not only relative to other players, it's also your market. So when Kamel was talking, I love the pregnancy test example. And with the group that I had the breakout group in, I told them that I worked in the pregnancy test category. And so that example always resonates with me. And what you could see in Kamel's example is that particular example is not so much about how they were positioning themselves relative to competition. It's how they were essentially creating a brand value proposition relative to a segment that started off with a kind of attitudinal area. And from that emanated all kinds of design and pricing questions. And so the reason that I would say your first part was absolutely right, and that you have to think about competition, but you also have to think about your target consumer, whether you're in B2B or you're in B2C. What are their segments? What are they like? What do they need and want? And then you want to make sure that your design of your product is reflective of that, in the same way that the pregnancy test realized that it needed to kind of bifurcate its product. They needed to have one for one type of customer and one type for the other. And it affected the packaging, it affected the pricing, it affected the naming, and all of that was enabled. They positioned themselves that way, but also it started with an understanding of who their customer was.
And I need to add also, it really defined who you are as a startup, what you believe in and things like that. Because who you are is not going to change, right? And the way it gets infiltrated in their head is through different manifestations that will happen. Maybe the ad that like Bob showed. Maybe they they went to the store and they saw the warm welcome that they got. Maybe the diamond ring that they found in some vacuum cleaner, maybe something like that. So in some way, it's like a khazina, right? It's like you have something of goodwill and it keeps accumulating and cements that view, right? And these things change also and evolve. So you start theoretically somewhere, right? But you need to be truthful to yourself of who you are. And over time, right, people would know you as a brand or as a people or as management, right? Right?
Perfect.
That's really, yeah, like my wife tells me, I know you too well. Right? Regardless of how I position myself. Yeah.
I would say,
thank you.
And I would say, by the way, for all of you that are in startups, is that this comes back to something. In a way, it's a recurrent theme throughout today's conversation, and that is that you need to give your customer a reason to see your value. They need to see your value as in terms of your differentiation from your competition. Because if they don't, they're not going to buy you because they just think you're a nice person. And a lot of people think, especially if they're engineers, they think if I just build this and it's really great, people are going to buy it. They're not. You need to understand your segment. You need to understand how to target them. You need to understand how to position to them.
I need to give an example here because I put it in a different way. I'm trying to put the brand as if as a person. We have students, Bob and I, he's from Tunisia now. He started to teach in Cornell, and recently he won a teaching award. Believe it or not, this is something I would never dream about, But although I take a credit that I mentored him, but the first thing I told him is like, if you want to be a good teacher, if you care about your students, that's 50% of the job done. If you care about your client, about your customers, you earned half of the way. Right? Because if you care to know, you'll know. If you care to serve, you'll serve. Right? That's kind of thing. Try to be truthful to what you're trying to achieve, not try to cheat somebody or trying to push somebody or something like that. I think, of course, I'm talking about something that is more long term than short term.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have any other questions? Let me check in the chat box if we have something. Okay, no. Okay.
I know it's getting late
So,
there. You have family and have a job tomorrow. So I just want to thank you for joining us and listening to us today. I'd like to thank my buddy, Bob Moraes, for joining me here over, I just told him like a day or two ago. I said I'm Tunisian and I'm used to these things. So
it's fine. It's a pleasure. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
And it's proud to be part of it. So, when I take the student to Tunisia, my MBA students, some student commented, said, these people don't have a watch or a clock, right? I said, but they're flexible and nice. It doesn't matter. So I think, Bob, this is the second time we will get exposure to North Africans. So hopefully one day we'll get to Morocco and to Tunisia. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Really a great pleasure.
I sent you the slides, Lena. So
yes.
Have fun and wish you all the best luck in your endeavor. I think you are the kind of people that our people need, and not many of them, probably 1 in 100 if I'm optimistic, but the 1 in 100 can take care of the rest. So believe in what you do, and there is only good things that happen in your life. Work hard.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thank
day.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
the
Thank you.
information.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye bye. Enjoy. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Anwar.